move on to discuss Anthony Richardson. He has returned as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. He was benched 2 weeks ago in favor of Joe Flacco. After a disappointing performance against the Houston Texans and that controversial play where he infamous I'm not even going to try to say that word that I was trying to say, where he tried to tap out, or he did tap out for a play, and there's a lot of speculation that had something to do with him being benched. Now, obviously, the Indianapolis Colts vehemently, and specifically Shane Steichen vehemently denied that notion. But to be honest, the only people that will ever truly know is them. But that ended up, but that series of events ended up leading to his benching, and up came Joe Flacco. And Joe Flacco came in after leading the Indianapolis Colts to a couple victories earlier this season, against some good teams as well, or against one good team in the Steelers, and he also had a really good game against the Titans as well, where they were able to get another victory. Shane Steichen, he decided to make a switch after going 4-4, and it was a move at that time that I thought could do the Indianapolis Colts some good, because if you looked at it up to that point they were 4-4. They lost. All 4 games that they lost. Number one was with Anthony Richardson as the quarterback at that point, right? And every single game that they lost was a 1-possession game. So they're 4-4, but every game that they're losing is a 1-possession game. So there's some room for improvement there. And then you want to analyze Anthony Richardson's performances. They've been garbage. They have been garbage. He has you look at the statistics he has this season. His completion percentage is 44%. That is one of the worst in the history in the NFL for how many passes he's thrown up to that point. I don't have the exact stat, but that is a historically terrible statistic right there. 44.4 passer rating. He's thrown for 958 yards in those 8 games. He has 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 57.2. To say he was struggling was a massive understatement. And despite his performances in those games, despite him having 50% completion at the Packers, 50% completion versus the Bears, 31% completion at Houston, 41% completion percentage against the Dolphins. Despite those lackluster performances and poor quarterback play, they're in all of those games. They're losing to the Bears. They're only not Bears. They're only losing to the Packers by 6 points. They're only losing to the Texans in 2 games by a combined 5 points in 2 games. One game they lost by 2. The other game they lost by 3. They're only losing to the Miami Dolphins by no, not Miami Dolphins. What was the other game that they lost under him? So they lost to the Packers, they lost to the Texans twice, and then they lost to... Actually, no. They lost 3 games with Anthony Richardson. The other game that they lost was with Joe Flacco, where the Colts defense unexplainably conceded 37 points to the Jaguars. Oh, Anthony Richardson did get one win. The one win that he got, he only managed 16 points, and he beat Tyler Huntley in Miami Dolphins, who scored 10. But yeah, they've been 1-3, and you're thinking about it. This is an Indianapolis team with talent, and they were a drop away from making the playoffs last season. So to expect them to make the playoffs again this season is not that high. It's not that high of expectation. And you're looking at it. You're Shane Steichen. You're 4-4. Why don't we bring Joe Flacco back into the mix? Because he just gives us a better chance to win now. Well, you put him in there, and you lose 2 straight games against the Vikings and the Bills. Against the Vikings, he doesn't play terribly. 180 yards, 1 interception, 16 of 27. They only managed to score 13 points. Can't really get the ball moving against the Brian Flores defense that's been absolutely elite this season. And then they lose to the Buffalo Bills, in which he, goes 26 for 25 and has 272 yards and 2 touchdowns. But he throws 3 interceptions. That's the thing with Joe Flacco. Even last season, when he was coming in for the Browns, he did throw a lot of interceptions. He will gamble, and they ended up losing that game 30-20. And they were, to be honest, they were never really, they were in it, but they were never really in it. You never believed that they were going to be able to get that victory, and now the Colts being at 4-6, which I still don't think is a horrible position to be in. I still think you're not even. I wouldn't even say it's an outside shot. I still think you have a legitimate shot at that 7th seed. Yeah. But the Colts decide they're gonna go back to Anthony Richardson, and look, I don't think that's the worst decision in the world, because Anthony Richardson, the one thing he does need is his reps. I believe he played 12 or 13 games in college, and he's only played 10 in the NFL, and so he does need reps. And if you're in a position where you believe the season is practically over, of course you put him in there. Is the season over for Indianapolis? I wouldn't say so, but they do take on the Jets. But then after that, they do have the Lions, and then it gets pretty easy from there. With the Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jaguars, that's manageable. I think the Colts have a legitimate 6 out of 7 winnable games on their schedule. Detroit is out of the out of the realm of possibility. But the other 6 games, I think they have a legitimate shot in there. So I was a little surprised that they, because in my opinion, moving away from Joe Flacco is almost conceding this season. But what is known is that Anthony Richardson does need reps. He does need reps. He needs that. He needs to prove whether or not he is that franchise quarterback or not. Indianapolis, they need to see it out of him, because who knows? They don't believe in him. They might be in that quarterback market again, in this never-ending cycle of trying to replace Andrew Luck. And look, yeah, Richardson, he has the talent, he has the bright side, but he just doesn't have the poise in my opinion, as an NFL quarterback. Sometimes I question his mechanics. He has a really, really great arm, an extremely great arm. That throw that he made opening, I believe it was week 1 against the Texans, where he was slipping, couldn't get a proper foot, and he just launches the ball 70, 80 yards, like effortlessly. It was incredible. And he makes those throws. Then he goes where you put him in shotgun, and he's struggling to read a basic defense and go through the progressions like a basic NFL quarterback would. And it's there's a big high ceiling, but there's an extremely low floor as well. There was a stat line, actually. It was during that Texans game. I believe he was something like 2 of 15, but he had 98 yards and a touchdown. It really defined Anthony Richardson in one stat line, and right there. At that point in the game, obviously, he didn't finish that Texans game with that stat line, but there was a period in that Texans game where he was like 2 of 15, but he had 92 yards and a touchdown. It was a great representation of, the inconsistencies, and the fact that Anthony Richardson does have extremely high ceiling but extremely low floor.